Prince showed me you didn't need anything more than what you already had. He taught me reinvention, always striving to become a new you than you were before. And yeah, just a lot of life lessons I got from the guy. I met Prince when I was 12.
Where did you meet Prince when you were 12?
In Dayton. After he performed at UD Arena. Yeah, I mean, I knew him my whole life. He was like the guiding force for me. It's the reason I had high self-esteem was because of him. Like, just a lot of things that I didn't...
Did he say something, or was his behavior inspiring and self-esteem shedding?
No, he wasn't really like that. He was a high thinker and a guy that was always 30 steps ahead of whatever the curve was.
Why are two of the most powerful figures in entertainment, Clive Davis and Sean Diddy Combs, so afraid of Prince? That's the question Katt Williams raised. And when you look closer at what Prince stood for, what he exposed, and the timing of his things start to feel off.
He's very mysterious. He loves to have all this mystery, and you don't know where he's going, what he's doing, what he's talking about half the time.
No, and he'll wear pumps and be looking at you like there's nothing wrong.
Katt suggests that Prince was more than just a music icon. He was someone who stood up to the most powerful elites. And that made him dangerous, because he knew too much and wasn't afraid to speak on it. Katt claims that Prince's was the result of standing up to people who weren't used to being challenged. But what made Prince so dangerous for industry elites? For that, we need to look at who he was really fighting. Prince had a long history with Warner Bros. Records. It was a war over music rights. They wanted his art, but Prince wanted freedom. He wanted to own his masters, and when Warner refused, he decided to change his name to a symbol. He showed up to interviews with the word slave written on his face. That wasn't a gimmick. It was a cry for help. A way of exposing how badly artists were being treated behind closed doors. And while Prince was out there fighting that public battle, guess who was siding with Warner? Diddy himself. In 2005, Bad Boy Records announced a major partnership with Warner Music Group. That raised some eyebrows. Because on the surface, Diddy often praised artists like Prince. But behind the scenes, he was working with the same companies Prince had been battling for years. Now, there's no evidence Diddy directly went after Prince. But that partnership seemed like a betrayal, like Diddy was playing both sides. And just when Prince finally won that battle, we heard the sad news.
Good day. We are coming on the air with breaking news about the death of an American music icon. Prince, the innovative, one-of-a-kind artist who's given us so much great music over the decades, has been found at his Paisley Park compound in suburban Minneapolis.
In April 2014, Prince regained control of his masters. It was a huge moment. After decades of fighting, he finally owned the rights to his work. But almost exactly 2 years later, Prince was found dead in his house. The report said he took fake Vicodin that was secretly laced with fentanyl. But Prince wasn't known for using heavy drugs. He was clean and extremely health conscious. That didn't sit right with fans, and it didn't sit right with Katt Williams either. He suggested that Prince's death wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a message, a warning. Because people who speak out in this business, people who don't follow the rules or stay quiet, have a habit of disappearing or dying under strange circumstances. And according to Katt, the people who make those calls aren't always in the spotlight. He named Oprah and Diddy as two of the biggest gatekeepers in the industry. He believes they control who gets in, who gets blacklisted, and who becomes the next star. And Katt isn't alone. He's hinted that many artists live in fear of these people. They smile on camera, but behind the scenes, it's a different story. That's where Kevin Hart comes in. Kevin Hart seems to have strong ties to both Oprah and Diddy, two people Katt clearly doesn't trust. Kevin's name pops up a lot in these conversations, especially when it comes to how fast he rose through the ranks. Katt doesn't accuse him directly of anything, but he suggests that Kevin is part of a network that protects itself. And if you guys remember, just days before federal agents raided Diddy's properties, Kevin Hart shut down all his restaurants. Katt implies that someone in that circle knew what was coming and made moves before things got messy. Coincidence? Maybe. But then Katt dropped a bombshell that ties everything together.
You know what the #1 job of somebody that sold their soul in Hollywood is?
What?
Is to act like it didn't happen.
In his viral interview on Club Shay Shay, Katt opened the floodgates. He spoke directly about the abuse, blackmail, and so-called sacrifices that happen in the industry. He said some of Hollywood's most powerful people keep control by recording celebrities in compromising situations. Bedroom cameras, blackmail footage. And he didn't just say this was happening. He claimed it's been happening for years. And here's the part that brings us to Prince. Katt hinted that Prince wasn't afraid of these people, that he had seen it all, and was ready to talk about it. He may have even collected evidence, the freak-off footage from Diddy's parties.
Well, it's not your game. You didn't make the rules, so everything comes hard. And as long as you're signed to a contract, you're going to take a minority share of the winnings. A select few of us will do well, the majority will not. So as a people, we'll be considered a minority.
Cassie's recent testimony painted a horrifying picture of Diddy, and there's a chilling connection back to Prince. According to Cassie, Diddy once brutally beat her just for going to a Prince party. We're not talking about some random outing. This was a party thrown by one of the most respected musicians in the world. Prince was known for being private, but deeply spiritual, creative, and respectful toward other artists. So for Diddy to completely lose control over something like that, it wasn't just jealousy. It felt like fear. Like he saw Prince as a threat. Cassie didn't say Diddy was upset because she cheated or disrespected him. His anger wasn't about the relationship. It was about Prince. That points to something deeper. And when we look at the kind of events Prince was known for hosting, it starts to make sense. Prince's 3,121 parties weren't your typical industry hangouts. These weren't fueled, camera-filled nights like the ones Diddy is accused of hosting. Prince's parties were creative sanctuaries, artistic, deeply spiritual, and full of freedom. It was a space where artists could be themselves. He invited people into his world to inspire them, not control them. And here's where it gets even more messy. Some insiders claim that at those gatherings, Prince would warn other artists about Hollywood's gatekeepers, especially about people like Diddy. He didn't do it loudly or in front of cameras, but if you were in his inner circle, you knew what he was trying to say. He wanted artists to reclaim their power, their image, their identity, and that was a direct threat to people who built their empires on control. And let's be real, Diddy's reputation wasn't built overnight, and it definitely wasn't built on kindness. Gene Deal, who worked closely with Diddy for years, came forward and shared disturbing stories about the star's private life.
I'm here at the door and stuff like that, like, yeah, so then next thing you know, somebody rang the doorbell. We had the presidential suite where we was at. So I opened the door and the dude said, yo, I'm here for my cousin. Puff and Ja Rule runs out the room. Puff got his towel, Ja grabbing his towel, but they butt the naked. And so then Ja was like, yo, what's going on? Yo, Gene, that's my cousin. He know me well, you know, and Puff was like, yo, Gene, what happened? I said, he tried to get in the room. I told him he couldn't get in the room. And he was like, he just looked, Puff looked at Ja. He said, yo, Ja said, you ain't want to go in that room because there's a lot of freaking going on. So I was like, oh, he said it was a lot of freaking going on. So that was basically that story, man. When Ja said, you don't want to come up in there, a lot of freaky stuff is going on. You got to use your mind. What they was doing with those plugs.
According to Gene, Diddy wasn't just partying. He was leading people into what he calls sinful activities. Behind closed doors, there were rules being broken left and right, especially when it came to young and vulnerable people. Gene talked about how Danity Kane, one of Diddy's former girl groups, was mistreated and manipulated. He also mentioned how Diddy was under federal investigation in 2013, tied to his relationship with underage artists like Justin Bieber. The case didn't go public in a big way, but the whispers never stopped. And according to Katt Williams, this is exactly why people like Prince end up targeted. Katt says there's a pattern. If you speak against Diddy, you get silenced. It nearly happened to Katt. And Prince's story is now another example of how bad this situation really is. But it wasn't just Diddy. Katt also called out another industry queenpin, Oprah Winfrey. According to Katt, Oprah isn't the loving, uplifting figure fans think she is. He claims Oprah is a gatekeeper, someone who shields abusers and plays a bigger role in silencing voices than most people realize. A resurfaced interview with the Olsen twins shows Oprah in a very different light. The twins, who've always been quiet and private, appeared uncomfortable. While Oprah pushed them to discuss eating disorders they clearly didn't want to talk about. And to many, it showed how Oprah could use her platform to manipulate even the most vulnerable guests, especially young women.
Pop singer Seal has launched an attack against Oprah, accusing her of knowing about disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. He sent the following meme on Instagram, which reads, "When you're part of the problem for decades, but subtly, they all think you are the solution." Seal then wrote the hashtag Sanctimonious Hollywood.
Now, when it comes to Oprah's relationship with other Black artists, things become even more uncomfortable. Monique's story is one of the clearest examples. After winning an Oscar for Precious, she was celebrated as one of the top Black actresses in the industry. But when she refused to do unpaid promotion for the film, she was blackballed.
I got labeled as difficult because I said one word, and that was no. Now, I said no to some very powerful people. What Tyler Perry showed me, Lee Daniels, Oprah Winfrey, and Lionsgate. When you don't do what we ask you to do, we'll take your livelihood.
Monique publicly said Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels were all involved in shutting doors behind her back. But Oprah's betrayal stung the most, not just professionally, but personally. According to Monique, Oprah invited her abusive family members onto her show without her consent. That included the brother who had molested her as a child.
Oprah Winfrey called us up, and she said my brother wanted to come on the show.
Your older brother you described as a monster. And he,
yes,
from the time you were
7.
And that's not all. She's been silent about which abusers she chooses to call out. One of the biggest examples is Harvey Weinstein. Oprah was photographed several times approaching Weinstein. Even as the allegations against him mounted, Oprah didn't speak out. Not when it mattered. Not when her voice could have helped survivors come forward. Seal posted about Oprah's friendship with Weinstein, saying she was part of the problem. Rose McGowan, one of Weinstein's most vocal accusers, also called Oprah fake and accused her of enabling predators behind her back.
So Rose McGowan has put Oprah on blast. Rose recently called out Oprah on Twitter over her past associations with some controversial men. Rose wrote, quote, "From being pals with Harvey Weinstein to abandoning and destroying Russell Simmons' victims, she is about supporting a sick power structure for personal gain. She is as fake as they come."
Then there's John of God, a healer Oprah promoted on her platform. She gave him credibility, calling him a miracle worker. Years later, he was convicted of multiple counts of, including accusations involving underage girls. Again, Oprah said nothing. Even 50 Cent weighed in. He's had beef with both Oprah and Diddy. But when he saw the patterns, how they seemed to silence or sabotage other Black artists, he connected the dots. He called them out for pretending to empower people while actually blocking real voices from rising. And here's the Prince link. He was one of the few artists who refused to play by Hollywood's rules. He called out the industry. He kept his circle small, he owned his music, spoke openly about spiritual warfare, and warned others about industry traps. If someone like Oprah was really protecting the status quo, and if Diddy was part of that same machine, it makes sense why they'd see Prince as a threat.
The first Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party.
Now, at first glance, that sounds bizarre. Why would Prince, someone so private and spiritually grounded, ever allow someone like Diddy to throw one of his freak-off parties inside Paisley Park? But according to Jason Lee, Prince had a reason. And it wasn't about being friendly. He allegedly allowed Diddy to use the space so he could secretly gather evidence. Prince understood how power worked in the industry. He had already spent decades fighting corporate giants like Warner Brothers, and by then, he knew the real dangers didn't just come from contracts, they came from secrets. So if the rumors are true, Prince may have used those parties as a way to collect leverage. Reports claim he had footage, not just of Diddy partying, but of him engaging in behavior that could be used as blackmail material, private rooms, surveillance setups. Prince allegedly had it all on tape. And then, just before revealing the real truth to the world, Prince was announced Officially, the cause was a fentanyl overdose from counterfeit pills. But here's where things get uncomfortable. That kind of sudden death, right after regaining his masters and possibly having compromising material on Diddy, it felt like this whole thing was a setup.
I find it very surprising that Prince would have overdosed on drugs. He was well known for clean living, and he was strongly against smoking, drinking, and taking drugs.
Wendy Williams has already spoken out about the weird energy surrounding Diddy and his crew. She didn't go into the details for obvious reasons, but it was enough to show there's always been tension about how Diddy uses people and how things tend to go wrong around him.
Back to your lifestyle.
Yes.
Because I don't, you live a really hectic lifestyle. And I don't understand all the running around and who are these people that you surround yourself with and who are these people? Do they violate you? Do you get robbed? What happens? Now you threw a house party and I got the footage, okay? Look at this. Now who has this many people at their house? Puff, and or Sean, Diddy, Doody, what do I call you?
And then there's Kim Porter. Kim was mother to several of Diddy's children. She passed away suddenly in 2018, but people close to her didn't believe it. She had allegedly told people she was writing a tell-all book, that she knew about Diddy's sinful acts. Even Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said Kim was silenced. He didn't dance around it. He's been in the game long enough to know when something doesn't add up. And he says Kim's was a message for everyone who thought Diddy was just a regular individual.
I feel that it was some foul play in her death.
Coming back to Prince, there were whispers of a suicide note, but authorities never fully confirmed or released it. What's worse, the local sheriff's office refused to reveal all the details surrounding his death. They claimed the investigation was closed, but fans and family wanted answers, and they never got them.
A Paisley Park employee reportedly finds a suicide note, and in it, he claims that Prince said that he needs to stop the pain, even if it means ending everything, and that it was time for him to go.
Bear in mind that this incident happened about 29 hours ago and continues to be under investigation. There are some things regarding this investigation that I will not be able to talk about.
So here we are, two mysterious, both linked to Diddy. Both are surrounded by rumors of hidden knowledge and unfinished stories, and both wrapped in official statements that left out more than they revealed. If Jason Lee's claim is real, and Prince really did have footage from those parties, that's a huge thing to sit on, especially when it's tied to someone like Diddy, who's now being accused of everything from blackmail to trafficking. And if Prince was planning to expose that world, or even just hint at it, he would have become the biggest threat of all.
It's a double-edged sword, A lot of artists aren't getting paid full scale for their art, and the internet, because of downloading and things like that, is kind of like a black hole, and it's hard to audit, it's hard to get accounting, and it's not that it's just about the money, but it's about justice and fairness. And when people say that they love you and they respect you, but at the same time take, 80% of your earnings, then expect you to fix your own communities, and they'll probably edit all of this out, but then it gets, that's the sharp part of the sword, and we're at the wrong end of it right now. So eventually, with courageous people going out there and actually saying something and standing up for it, I think we'll get some balance.
For years, fans, journalists, Hollywood insiders wondered about Prince's passing. Conspiracy theories floated around his, but nothing hit as hard as hearing it directly from the people who loved Prince most. First up, Tyka Nelson, Prince's sister.
When your brother passed away, what was that like for you?
It wasn't hard at all. It was a 2-second phone call. He's gone. I had been preparing for 2 years, so I knew that it was coming.
What does that mean?
He said it a couple of years ago.
What would he say?
What he said was, I've done everything that I've come to do. So I was crushed for about two years.
In an interview not long after his demise, Tyka made a statement. She said she knew Prince was going to die. She didn't explain how or why, but it wasn't said casually. Her words weren't about health or old age. There was a weight behind them, like she knew something was coming, like she had seen a pattern and just couldn't stop it. And his fiancé echoed those same fears.
He had called me before about some other rumors about other artists that might have passed, and found out that it was not true, so I was hoping that that wasn't the case.
Sheila revealed that Prince had warned her that artists in the industry were being killed off. Not just fading away or self-destructing, but taken out. According to her, Prince was watching what was happening around him. He saw the playbook, and he wasn't afraid to talk about it. He told her that the deeper you go in the industry, the more danger you're in, especially when you start pulling away from the system, speaking up, or owning your work. And Prince had done all three. Sheila E. took that seriously too. After she publicly promised to fight for answers. She said there were too many questions and not enough clarity. She knew Prince, his habits, his mindset, his goals, and none of it aligned with the version of events the public was given. Even Candace Owens stepped in to push for an independent investigation into Prince's. That move raised eyebrows, but also drew attention. Why would someone with no direct connection to Prince care so much? Unless, of course, she'd seen the same patterns play out with Kim Porter, Michael Jackson's, Whitney Houston.
I did not realize that you can quite literally draw a direct line from Prince to Michael Jackson, to Ye, and then now to Justin Bieber and the things that they have been saying.
I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist.
There's a disintegration going on that we really have to address. Our values have been lessened to a great degree. People can say all they want to, that there's no reason for these kids to listen to music and then go shoot somebody. But, there's something that's triggering these buttons.
Record companies really, really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can.
We can't just say, oh, it's okay for people to super complicate deals and to collude on deals and to not look at us as human beings, as artists and athletes and actors, that we have to be willing to stand up for that to be able to change something.
If they cannot control you, they will ruin you. So I started thinking over this weekend, what if we just stopped for 1 second accusing all of these artists of being crazy, and instead we started actually investigating some of the things that they've been saying?
He told young artists to be careful, to know who they were dealing with. He didn't say names directly, but based on who he was pushing back against, the message was clear. People like Diddy, people like Oprah, the gatekeepers, the protectors of the system. But was he silenced for what he knew? And what about so many people being connected to Diddy falling mysteriously silent? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's it for today. See y'all in the next one.